The manila envelope felt heavier than it should have as I tore it open. Inside, my bank statement stared back at me with a balance that made my stomach drop. $12.37. That was all that remained of the college fund. My father had started for me when I was born, the fund that should have contained nearly $50,000. My hands trembled as I dialed the bank's customer service number. There had to be a mistake, but the representative's words confirmed my worst fears. The account had been systematically drained over the past 6 months, all withdrawals authorized by the joint account holder, my mother. I sat in my dorm room, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across my psychology textbooks, and tried to make sense of what was happening. My younger brother Mason had just started medical school 3 months ago. The timing wasn't a coincidence. The drive home felt like an eternity. Each mile brought a new wave of anger, disbelief, and hurt. By the time I pulled into our suburban driveway, I had rehearsed a dozen different confrontations in my head. None of them seemed adequate for the betrayal I was feeling. The house smelled like pot roast when I walked in. My mother, Patricia, was in the kitchen, humming to herself as she set the table for what looked like a celebration dinner. Champagne glasses sparkled under the chandelier. "Sophia, what a wonderful surprise," she said, not looking up from arranging the silverware. "You're just in time for dinner. We're celebrating Mason's first successful rotation." Mason sat at the table, still in his scrubs, grinning like he'd won the lottery. Maybe he had, at my expense. "Mom, we need to talk," I said, my voice steadier. Then I felt. "After dinner, sweetheart. Come sit. I made your favorite." "No." The word came out sharper than intended. "We need to talk now, about my college fund." The humming stopped. Mason looked up from his phone, sensing the shift in atmosphere. "What about it?" Mom's voice had taken on that defensive edge I knew so well. "It's gone. All of it. $50,000, Mom. Gone." She straightened, smoothing her apron. "That money went to good use. Your brother's education is an investment in this family's future. My education was supposed to be an investment too. Psychology?" She laughed, a bitter sound. "What were you going to do with a psychology degree? Waste 4 years to become a counselor making $40,000 a year? Mason is going to be a surgeon. He'll take care of all of us. That wasn't your decision to make. Dad left that money for me." The mention of my father changed something in her expression. Her face hardened. "Your father isn't here, is he? I'm making the decisions now, and I decided that one child becoming a doctor is better than another becoming a glorified babysitter for people's feelings." Mason shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, maybe we should have discussed." "Quiet, Mason. This is between your sister and me." I pulled out the bank statements I'd printed, spreading them across her perfectly set table. "This is theft. You stole from me. I'm your mother. I did what was best for this family. You did what was best for Mason. You always have." Years of resentment poured out. Ever since Dad died, it's been about Mason. Mason's football, Mason's grades, Mason's future. What about mine? "You want to know the truth?" She leaned forward, her eyes cold. "Your father spoiled you. Filled your head with dreams and nonsense. Someone had to be practical. Someone had to ensure this family had a real future. By stealing my education? By investing in the child with real potential?" The words hung in the air like a slap. Mason looked stricken. I felt something inside me break and reshape itself into something harder. "I'm done," I said quietly. "I'm dropping out." "Don't be dramatic, Sophia. Take out loans like everyone else." "No, I'm done with school, and I'm done with you." I gathered the bank statements. "I'll be back for my things tomorrow." "Where will you go? You have $12 to your name." She called after me as I headed for the door. "I'll figure it out. I learned from the best, after all. How to take care of myself when the person who should protect me betrays me instead." The next few weeks were the hardest of my life. I crashed on my friend Jamie's couch, officially withdrew from college, and tried to figure out my next move. The psychology degree I'd been working toward for 3 years was gone, along with any trust I'd had in my family. Jamie worked at a vintage clothing store downtown and mentioned they were hiring. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a paycheck. I threw myself into the work, learning about fashion history, fabric quality, and the art of finding hidden treasures in estate sales and thrift stores. One rainy Thursday, while sorting through a new shipment, I found a leather jacket that made me pause. It was perfectly worn, with a distinctive patina and custom stitching. Something about it felt familiar. "Holy shit," Jamie whistled, examining the label. "This is a genuine 1960s shot perfecto. These go for over $1,000. "We bought this whole lot for $50, I said, an idea beginning to form. That night, I researched vintage clothing markets, online reselling, and authentication techniques. By morning, I had a business plan sketched out. I called Jamie. What if we started our own vintage boutique? Online first, then maybe a physical location. With what money? Jamie asked, though I could hear the interest in their voice. We start small. Hit estate sales, thrift stores. I've been watching the owner. I know what to look for now. We split everything 50-50. 3 months later, Vintage Vault was born. We operated out of Jamie's garage, photographing items with professional lighting Jamie borrowed from their photography student girlfriend. Our first month, we made $800. The second month, $2,000. By month 6, we were clearing $5,000 in profit and had hired 2 part-time employees. The work was exhausting but exhilarating. Every estate sale was a treasure hunt. Every successful authentication, a small victory. I discovered I had an eye for quality and a talent for storytelling. Each piece we sold came with a narrative about its era, its craftsmanship, its journey to our shop. It was at an estate sale in the wealthy part of town that my past caught up with me. I was examining a collection of vintage band t-shirts when I heard a familiar voice. "Sophia, is that you?" I turned to find Mr. Davidson, my father's former business partner, looking at me with surprise and something like concern. "Mr. Davidson," I managed, clutching the Led Zeppelin shirt I'd been evaluating. "I heard you left school. Your mother said you'd had some kind of breakdown." "Is that what she's telling people?" I laughed bitterly. "No breakdown, just a business decision. I'm running my own company now." His eyebrows raised. "Really? What kind of business?" I explained Vintage Vault, watching his expression shift from skepticism to interest. "Your father would be proud," he said finally. "He always said you had his entrepreneurial spirit. In fact," he glanced around, then lowered his voice. "Could we talk privately? There's something about your father I think you should know." We stepped onto the estate sales back porch. Mr. Davidson looked uncomfortable. "Your father didn't just leave you that college fund," he said. "There was also a collection, vintage guitars, first edition books, some artwork. He kept it in a storage unit, planned to give it to you when you turned 25. Said it was your inheritance, separate from anything your mother could touch." My heart pounded. "Where is it?" "That's the thing. After he died, your mother claimed she knew nothing about it. But I saw the paperwork, Sophia. He definitely had that storage unit, and it was paid up for 10 years in advance. She stole that too?" The betrayal deepened. "I can't prove anything, but I can give you the storage facility information. Maybe they still have records." A week later, I stood in front of Sentinel Storage, Unit 447. The manager, after verifying my identity and my father's death certificate, cut the lock. Inside, covered in dust but otherwise pristine, was my father's secret legacy. 6 vintage Jim guitars, including a 1959 Gibson Les Paul. Boxes of first edition books, Hemingway, Fitzgerald, Kerouac, original concert posters from the 60s and 70s. And in the back, wrapped in protective cloth, 3 paintings by emerging artists my father had believed in. But it was the letter, tucked into a guitar case, that broke me. "My dear Sophia," it read in my father's careful handwriting. "If you're reading this, then I'm gone and you're 25, or your mother finally told you the truth. I'm betting on the former. These items aren't just valuable, they're pieces of history, stories waiting to be told. I know you'll understand their worth beyond money. Take care of them, and they'll take care of you. Don't let anyone, not even family, convince you that your dreams aren't worth pursuing. All my love, Dad." The postscript made my blood run cold. P.S. If your mother claims she didn't know about this, she's lying. I told her, but I also made sure she couldn't access it. Trust your instincts about people, sweetheart. Even the ones who should love you most. I sat in that storage unit for an hour, crying for the father I'd lost and the mother I'd never really had. Then I called Jamie. "We need a truck," I said. "And a lawyer." The guitars alone were worth over $100,000. The books and posters added another $50,000. The paintings, now that the artists had gained recognition, were valued at nearly $300,000 combined. But I didn't sell them, not immediately. Instead, I used them as collateral for a business loan. Vintage Vault moved into a real storefront, a beautiful space in the arts district with exposed brick and perfect lighting. We expanded our inventory, hired more employees, and launched authentication services. The grand opening was a sensation. We'd built buzz on social media, and the line stretched around the block. Local news covered it. That's when my mother reappeared. She walked in wearing her best dress, Mason trailing behind her, looking uncomfortable. "Sophia," she said, as if the past 18 months hadn't happened. "The store looks wonderful." "We're closed for a private event," I said, not moving from behind the counter. "I'm your mother. Surely I can—" "No." Mason stepped forward. "Soph, please." I didn't know about the college fund until after. I would have what? Given it back? Refused to go to medical school? I studied my brother. "How's that going, by the way?" He flushed. "I'm taking a semester off. The pressure, He's struggling," Mom interjected quickly, "which is why we need to talk. As a family." "We're not a family. You made that clear when you chose his future over mine." "I've been thinking," she continued as if I hadn't spoken, "about your father's estate. There might have been some oversights in how things were distributed." There it was. She knew about the storage unit. "You mean the collection you told Mr. Davidson you knew nothing about?" Her composure cracked. "I don't know what you're talking about. Unit 447 at Sentinel Storage. The guitars, the books, the paintings. Ring any bells?" Mason looked between us, confused. "What collection?" "The one Mom tried to hide from me, just like she hid stealing my college fund from you." "I was protecting you," Mom burst out. "Your father filled your head with dreams about art and creativity. Someone had to be practical." "By stealing from me? Twice? That collection was meant for both of you." "I have the letter, Mom, in Dad's handwriting. It was only for me." She changed tactics, tears appearing on cue. "We're struggling, Sophia. The medical school bills, the mortgage. We need help." "Then maybe you should have thought about that before you invested in the wrong child," I said, echoing her words from that dinner months ago. Mason flinched. "Soph, I'm sorry. I didn't want this. Any of it. I never even wanted to be a doctor." "That was all, Mom." I looked at my brother, really looked at him. He seemed smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of expectations he'd never asked for. "I know," I said gently. "This was never about you, Mason." "If you sell just one guitar," Mom started. "Get out." I moved to the door, holding it open. "Both of you. Mason, if you want a relationship with me, it'll be on my terms, without her. Mom, we're done. Don't contact me again. You can't just—" "I can, and I am. Just like you did when you stole my future. Except I'm being honest about—" She left, but not before hissing, "You're just like your father, a dreamer who'll end up with nothing." "Maybe," I said, "but at least it'll be my nothing earned honestly." The confrontation left me shaken but oddly liberated. That night, Jamie and I celebrated our store's success quietly, surrounded by the vintage treasures we'd accumulated. Each piece told a story, carried history in its fibers and seams. "You know what's funny?" Jamie said, examining a 1970s concert tee. "Your mom thought she was being practical, investing in Mason's medical degree. But look at us. We're making more than most doctors, and we actually love what we do." They were right. Our monthly revenue had exceeded what Mason would make as a resident. But more than that, I'd found my calling in preserving and sharing these pieces of history. A month later, Mason showed up at the store alone. He looked different, lighter somehow. "I dropped out," he said without preamble. "Officially. Told Mom I'm done living her dreams." "What will you do?" He smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him in years. "I don't know. Maybe nothing for a while, maybe everything. I'm 22, Soph. I've got time to figure it out." "And Mom?" Losing her mind, threatening to disown me. The usual. He paused. "I'm sorry. For all of it. For being the reason you lost your education. You weren't the reason. Her choices were the reason. I studied my brother. Want a job? We're hiring for the holiday season." He laughed. "You'd hire me? After everything? On one condition. You learn the business from the ground up. No special treatment because you're family." "Deal," he said immediately. Mason turned out to be a natural with customers, his easy charm and genuine interest in people making him our best salesperson. He moved into a small apartment nearby, supporting himself for the first time. The independence suited him. Vintage Vault continued to grow. We opened a second location, then a third. Online sales exploded. I hired experts to help authenticate items, partnered with estate sale companies, even started a YouTube channel documenting our finds. The guitars from my father's collection became the centerpiece of our flagship store, displayed, but not for sale. Customers often asked about them, and I'd tell the story. Edited, but honest. They became a symbol of the store's values, authenticity, history, and the belief that everything valuable has a story worth preserving. One evening, as I was closing up the original store, Mr. Davidson stopped by. "I've been following your success," he said, admiring the guitar display. "Your father would be so proud." "I hope so. I know so. He always said you'd find your own path." He paused. "I have something for you. I've debated giving this to you, but I think it's time." He handed me an envelope. Inside was a single photograph. My father and a woman I didn't recognize, standing in front of what looked like our storage unit. "Who is she?" "Her name was Elena. She was a friend of your father's. She helped him acquire most of that collection. She's an art dealer, lives in Seattle now." I studied the photo. My father looked happy, relaxed in a way I rarely saw him at home. "Were they? I don't know. But she might have answers to questions you didn't know you had." The next week, I flew to Seattle. Elena turned out to be an elegant woman in her 60s with kind eyes and an apartment full of art. "I wondered when you'd find me," she said, pouring tea. "You look just like him." "How did you know my father?" "We met at an auction, both bidding on the same Basquiat sketch. Neither of us could afford it alone, so we split it." She smiled at the memory. "That's how we started. Finding pieces together, sharing the cost and the joy." "Were you in love with him?" She considered this. "I loved him. He loved me. But he loved you and Mason more. He stayed in his marriage for you." My mother knew, she suspected. It's part of why she hated the collection. It represented a part of his life she couldn't control. But you helped him build it. For me. He wanted you to have something she couldn't touch. He knew, Sophia. He knew what she was capable of. What? Do you mean? Elena hesitated. Your father's death, the car accident. Did you ever question it? Ice flooded my veins. It was an accident. Black ice. The police said what they saw. But your father was the most careful driver I knew, and he just changed his will to ensure the collection went directly to you, bypassing your mother entirely. I think your mother is a woman who does whatever she believes is necessary to control her family's future. What do you think? I flew home with more questions than answers, but I also carried a box Elena had given me, letters from my father, photos of pieces in the collection, documentation of their adventures in the art world, evidence of a life lived with passion, even if partially in secret. That night, I sat in my store after hours, surrounded by my father's guitars and the empire I'd built from betrayal. I thought about calling the police, demanding they reopen the investigation. But what would that accomplish? My father was gone. My mother was already living with the consequences of her choices. One child who'd cut her off, another who'd rejected her dreams. Instead, I made a different choice. I created the David Chen Foundation, my father's name finally getting the recognition it deserved, offering scholarships to students whose families couldn't or wouldn't support their dreams. The first recipient was a girl studying art history, whose parents wanted her to be an engineer. At the scholarship ceremony, my mother appeared. She looked older, smaller somehow. I heard about the foundation, she said. David would have liked that. Yes, he would have. Sophia, She stopped, perhaps realizing no words could undo what she'd done. The house is being foreclosed. I couldn't keep up with the payments after Mason left. I felt a flicker of sympathy, quickly extinguished. There are programs that can help. I'm sure Mason told you he's assistant manager at our downtown location now. He's doing well. He won't. Speak to me. That's his choice. I did what I thought was right, she said, a last defense. No, you did what you thought would give you control. There's a difference. She left without another word. It was the last time I saw her. Vintage Vault became a small empire. We expanded into vintage furniture, rare books, musical instruments. I bought the old storage facility where my father had hidden his collection, turning it into our warehouse and authentication center. Full circle. Mason eventually became a full partner, his natural people skills complementing my eye for treasures. He never returned to medical school, instead getting a business degree part-time while working. He was happier than I'd ever seen. Him. Think Dad would be proud? He asked one day, as we supervised the opening of our 10th location. I know he would be. Jamie, now managing our online operations, joined us. You know what the best revenge is? It's not just success. It's building something authentic while everyone who doubted you watches. They were right. My mother had tried to steal my future to build her vision of success. Instead, she'd freed me to build my own. I kept one guitar from my father's collection, the 1959 Gibson. Sometimes, late at night in the original store, I'd take it down and play. I wasn't very good, but that wasn't the point. It was about connection, to my father, to the past, to the stories that lived in every vintage piece we preserved and passed on. The thesis I'd never gotten to write for my psychology degree would have been about family dynamics and identity formation. In a way, I'd written it with my life instead. I'd learned that sometimes the family that betrays you gives you the greatest gift, the freedom to become who you were meant to be. My phone buzzed with a text from Mason. Estate sale alert. Elderly, collector, loved rock memorabilia. Want to check it out tomorrow? Always, I typed back. Every day was a treasure hunt now. Every vintage piece a story waiting to be discovered, preserved, and shared. My mother had stolen my college fund to invest in what she thought was a sure thing. Instead, she'd inadvertently invested in something far more valuable. My determination to prove that the dreams she'd dismissed were worth more than any degree. The next morning, as I opened the store, I found an envelope slipped under the door. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Sophia, it read, I've followed your success. I was wrong about everything. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I see now what David saw in you, what I was too blind to recognize. You are your father's daughter, and that is something to be proud of. Mom. I tucked the letter into my desk drawer alongside my father's note from the storage unit. Maybe someday I'd be ready to respond. Maybe not. But for now, I had a business to run, a legacy to honor, and a life built on authenticity rather than expectations. As customers began filtering in, drawn by our reputation for finding the unfindable and telling the stories behind every piece, I smiled. My mother had been right about one thing. I was just like my father, a dreamer. But dreamers who work hard, who build something real from their dreams, we don't end up with nothing. We end up with everything that matters.